Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. She, who was receiving blessings from the elders, suddenly took off the diamond ring on her hand. Ethan, I don't think we're a good match. Let's break up. I didn't try to persuade her to stay because I knew she had already made a new choice. In our previous life, we had been married for 5 years. It wasn't until the very end that I realized she still couldn't forget her first love, Damien. I let her go, and since then we became strangers. She chose to go abroad for development and was never heard from again. I stayed in the country alone. 7 years later, she had become a top designer, achieving great success, and made a sweet official announcement with Damien. Seeing that I was still alone, she couldn't help frowning and said, "Ethan, the past is in the past. Why do you keep waiting for me?" I gave a calm smile and ignored her. Later, when she learned that the daughter of the richest man was chasing after me, she immediately panicked. At the 10th anniversary reunion of the graduating class, Natalie showed up. By this time, she had already become a world-renowned top designer, enjoying great prestige. When I walked into the reunion venue, she was holding Damien's arm, basking in the compliments of her classmates. "Natalie, you're really outstanding. You've developed the best among our class." Of course, I heard that Natalie had already become a member of the management team in a Fortune 500 company. Her monthly salary is equivalent to what an ordinary person earns in 2 years. Natalie is not only highly capable, but also beautiful. "I heard that you came back this time to get engaged to Damien." Natalie gave a faint smile and said, "Yes, the date has been set." Everyone offered their congratulations again. Afterwards, someone casually mentioned me. "I wonder how Ethan is doing now." "Natalie, weren't you two almost getting married back then? How could you break up so suddenly?" I noticed that Natalie's smile froze, and her delicate eyebrows slightly furrowed as if she didn't know how to answer. Seeing this, Damien beside her gave a hearty laugh and took over the conversation. "Of course it's because I'm better than Ethan. How could Natalie possibly choose a loser like him?" As if to assert his dominance, Damien pulled Natalie into his arms. Everyone understood immediately that he didn't want to continue this topic. Then they shifted the topic to how well-matched the two of them were. Back in freshman year, Damien was a strong competitor of mine. He was Natalie's childhood sweetheart. They had grown up together since childhood and had a deep affection. If it hadn't been for the fact that he suddenly went abroad for development, and coincidentally I had rescued Natalie, who had fallen into the water during that period, saving the damsel in distress, I don't think I would have had the chance to be with Natalie. I straightened my clothes and walked slowly into the hall. Immediately, some classmates saw me. "Ethan, why are you so late? Why are your clothes so dirty? Don't you know what kind of occasion we're having? Today, at least change into clean clothes." What a bad omen. There were kind words as well as harsh ones. I didn't pay any attention to them and replied one by one. When I met Natalie's eyes, I nodded to her. "Long time no see." The complex look in Natalie's eyes disappeared in a flash. Damien stepped forward to block her gaze, looked me up and down, and then showed a sarcastic expression. "Indeed, long time no see, Ethan. Why do you still look so unambitious? Today is a reunion of old classmates, and you're attending it in these clothes. Isn't it too disrespectful to your old classmates?" As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding classmates burst into laughter. Damien was wearing an Armani suit paired with his handsome face, highlighting his identity as a successful entrepreneur. Natalie, beside him, was also dressed in a haute couture gown with a delicate face. Standing together, from any angle, anyone would say that they were a perfect match, a made-in-heaven couple. In contrast, with dust all over me and my messy hair, I really did look like I had just gotten off work from a construction site. I gave a calm smile, ignored them, and turned to go to the lounge to tidy up my clothes. There was still some time before the dinner started. There was no hurry. Walking out of the lounge, I saw Natalie leaning against the railing by the door. Being alone with an old lover would only add to the awkwardness, so I immediately wanted to leave. Unexpectedly, she called out to me first. "Ethan, the past is over. You shouldn't give up on yourself just because I left." She frowned and walked up to me. "We shouldn't have been together in our previous life. You should let it go. If it wasn't for you deceiving me before, Before she could finish her sentence, Damien appeared at the corner with a smile on his face. Seeing this, Natalie promptly stopped this topic. I was a bit puzzled. When did I deceive her? Could it be about hiding my private money in our previous life? I couldn't figure out and could only suppress my doubt in my heart. Perhaps there was some small misunderstanding between us. After all, we had been married for 5 years in our previous life. It was impossible to explain everything clearly. Moreover, now that we had already separated, there was no need to bring up old issues again. Damien walked up to Natalie and gently asked her what she had been talking about with me. Natalie, afraid that he might misunderstand, said that she wanted to recommend a job to me. Isn't there still a designer assistant position in your company? Why don't you let Ethan have a try? We're all old classmates. It's not a good idea for him to keep doing manual labor. It would also be embarrassing for us if people found out. With that, she turned her gaze back to me. Although the salary of an assistant isn't high, with bonuses it should be around 6 or 7,000. It's much better than doing manual labor. Damien's eyes flickered, and unexpectedly he agreed. He also forced a gilded business card into my hand, his enthusiastic attitude. It was so overwhelming that I could hardly get used to it. However, his expression seemed to be smiling, but not really smiling, which made me understand that if I went to work under him, he would definitely feel a great sense of accomplishment. I shook my head, returned the business card to him, and refused. Thank you for your kindness, but I don't need it. Why? Why are you still being so stubborn? Can pride put food on the table? Having a good future is what matters most. The corners of Damien's mouth lifted slightly where Natalie couldn't see. Ethan, we're being kind. If it weren't for Natalie thinking of the old friendship, she wouldn't have bothered to give you a helping hand at all. Look at you now. You're in such a mess that you're not even as good as the hotel cleaners. You've really let her down. I said calmly. Sorry, I know my own limitations. My current job is great, and I have freedom. Thank you for your kindness. Natalie snorted coldly and then fell silent. Damien sneered. You're just like a lump of mud that can't be propped up against the wall no matter what. Then he took Natalie and left. Watching the intimate backs of the two, I was in a daze. In the previous life, Natalie and I were deeply in love. Although we were busy running around for a living every day, our life was warm and happy. Our income was quite considerable as well. We had a house, a car, and savings, and our life was quite comfortable. Originally, Natalie and I were both planning to have a child, but one day she received a call from Damien, and then she completely changed. She started to be cold and sarcastic to me and would quarrel with me over the slightest thing. When she came home at night, she wouldn't snuggle up to me to watch TV dramas anymore. Instead, she would sit far away and play with her phone alone. Not to mention the matter of preparing for pregnancy, I had never doubted the feelings between us. After 5 years of marriage, I could feel her deep love for me, and I also regarded her as my whole world. So I wanted to have an open-hearted chat with her and ask her what had happened, but she remained silent, and the look in her eyes towards me was full of alienation. Until one day, I accidentally found a plane ticket to a foreign country in her bag. It was the place where Damien was. Only then did I understand that it was because of Damien. At that moment, it seemed as if my heart had been pierced by a sharp blade, and the pain was unbearable. I felt like I was drowning in ice water, desperate and suffocating. Just then, Natalie happened to come out of the room. When she saw the plane ticket in my hand, she snatched it away in disgust. Then she turned around, picked up her bag, and walked out of the house. I was in a hurry to catch up with her and wanted to ask her why she was treating me like this. Was our 5-year marriage just a joke? But when we were passing by the street, we were knocked down by a speeding private car, and both of us were reborn. Just as I was lost in the past, the phone in my pocket. Suddenly, my phone rang. Looking at the name displayed on it, I showed a knowing smile as soon as I picked it up. Before I could say anything, a concerned voice came from the other end. I just heard from the driver that you were blocked and beaten up by a group of enthusiastic old ladies because you were trying to save a cheated child. How is it? Being a good person isn't easy, right? Although the tone was a bit teasing, there was more concern in it. I replied with a smile, I'm happy to help others, and I'm happy even when I get beaten up. The other side burst out laughing. Just keep pretending. By the way, I'll also go to the hotel where your reunion is later. I happen to have a project to discuss there, and I can also take a look at the sorry state of our president. I calmly replied with an "oh," and the call was hung up. I shook my head with a light laugh until I heard a familiar classmate calling my name, saying that some classmates hadn't arrived yet and the dinner would start a bit later. The other side urged me, "Ethan, don't just stand here like a fool. We haven't seen our old classmates for such a long time. Come and have a chat." He dragged me to a private room, which was a place for singing and drinking. Many classmates were there. When Damien saw me enter the door, without saying a word, he forced a wine glass into my hand. Before I could refuse, he lowered his voice and said to me, "Ethan, thank you very much for taking care of Natalie for me. Do you remember what I told you back then? You must cherish her well. Otherwise, I'll take advantage of the situation. Of course, thank you notwithstanding, I still have to warn you to stay away from Natalie from now on. Otherwise, I'll definitely kill you." By the end of his speech, there was no trace of the gentle and refined look on Damien's face. In a place where none of the classmates could see, his face was full of hideousness. Then he slapped me hard on the shoulder. "Drink more tonight. These wines are all brought back by me from abroad. Probably except for today. You'll never get to drink such good wine in your life." Watching his back as he walked towards Natalie, I gave a calm smile. Perhaps, after all, I don't like drinking at all. Putting down the wine glass in my hand, I went to the circle of familiar friends. Originally, I just wanted to have a simple chat and catch up with my friends, but man proposes, God disposes. Before long, another full wine glass was placed in front of me. The old classmate who had urged me just now, Kieran, who was also my college roommate, persuaded me. "Ethan, when I asked you to come out for a drink before, you didn't agree. Today is a class reunion. Just do it for our sake and give us a face." There was nothing I could do. I could ignore Damien's wine, but when facing old classmates with whom I had a good relationship, I really couldn't refuse. In order not to spoil everyone's fun, I drank several glasses in a row until I felt dizzy in the head and my face was burning. I quickly waved my hand and said, "I can't anymore." I couldn't drink anymore. Karen and the others still wanted to persuade me. Suddenly, a beautiful figure with a fragrant breeze took the wine glass that Karen handed to me. "He has a bad stomach. Don't persuade him anymore. I'll drink it for him." The figure was Natalie. I don't know if she suddenly noticed the situation here or had been observing all along, but she came to my side immediately and blocked this glass of wine for me. The familiar words made me recall that in my previous life, she also blocked wine for me like this. "Ethan has a bad stomach and can't drink much. I'll drink this glass for him to show respect to everyone." In my memory, Natalie always stood in front of me with a smile and would try her best to protect me, whether facing elders or clients. At that time, I was really glad that I could have such a gentle and virtuous wife who always put me first in everything. I felt that it was a blessing I had cultivated in 8 lifetimes. But when Damien's figure appeared in my sight, I sobered up and finally came to my senses. Natalie no longer belonged to me. Damien's face was gloomy, and the look he gave me seemed as if he could pierce me through. Natalie was also a bit flustered and hurriedly walked over to Damien to explain. She said that I had once had a perforated stomach from drinking too much, and she was afraid that something might happen to me at the party, so she blocked the drink for me. She also asked him not to misunderstand. Damien smiled and comforted her, saying it was okay and that there was no misunderstanding. However, his actions expressed his dissatisfaction in his heart. He walked straight around Natalie and sneered at me with full sarcasm. "Ethan, originally I just thought you were a bit dirty in your clothes, but still barely counted as a man. But now it seems that you don't deserve to be a man at all, because a real man wouldn't let a woman block drinks for him." With that, he held out a full glass of wine in front of me, looking provocative. "Come on, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's have a drink and catch up." I calmly refused. "Sorry, I can't drink anymore." Damien narrowed his eyes with a smirk on his face. "Ethan, we're all old classmates. You drink with them but don't give me face? Do you look down on me?" He stared at me with a menacing gaze, and I looked back at him. Neither of us backed down. The The private room instantly fell silent. All the classmates noticed the situation on our side. Natalie hesitated for a moment, then gritted her teeth and grabbed Damien's arm, trying to pull him away. But Damien pushed her away directly, frowning and saying, "Who is your fiancé, after all? Could it be that in your heart, I'm not even as good as a piece of trash like Ethan?" His emotions burst out directly, scaring Natalie into freezing on the spot, her eyes red. Then she silently backed away. Noticing this scene, I felt a bit sad in my heart. I thought I had completely let go of my feelings for Natalie, but after all, she was the one I had deeply loved in my previous life and had been married for 5 years. It would be a lie to say that I didn't have any feelings at all. Damien then turned his gaze back to me, this time with no one to stop him. He forced the wine glass into my hand. "Ethan, it doesn't matter if you don't drink, but I'll still help you later. The president of Shinger Group is coming to discuss cooperation with me. I can recommend you to work in Shinger Group, even if it's just as a security guard. It's better than what you're doing now." I've said what I wanted to say. Whether you drink this glass of wine or not is up to you. He gave me the choice. It seemed that everything was up to my will, but his eyes were scanning Natalie, intentionally or unintentionally. The implication of threat was self-evident. The classmates around heard that Damien was going to cooperate with Shinger Group, and were all shocked. The assets of Shinger Group are enough to rank among the top 10 in the country. Damien is really amazing to be able to get in touch with them, right? Damien is indeed the best among our class. He'll surely reach great heights after this cooperation. Hearing these words, Damien's face was full of pride, and the look he gave me was like an elephant looking down on an ant. After a moment of silence, I suddenly chuckled. "Okay, thank you, I'll drink this." Damien became even more proud. Natalie was looking at me worriedly, wanting to stop me, but not daring to step forward. Just as I was about to drink the wine in one gulp, the door of the private room was suddenly pushed open. Led by a waiter, a fair-skinned, beautiful woman with an excellent temperament walked in. She was tall and had straight, slender legs paired with high-heeled shoes with thin heels. She attracted the attention of all the men in the room. Many classmates looked at her eagerly, and someone asked in a low voice, "Who is this beauty?" Kieran said excitedly, "Don't you even know? This is Ophelia, the new president of Shinger Group. Her family is definitely the richest. By the way, didn't Damien just say that he was going to cooperate with Shinger Group? Could it be that she's here to see him?" Kieran's tone was full of disbelief mixed with strong envy. Ophelia, the beautiful president at the door, didn't pay attention to these eager gazes. Her cold and beautiful eyes kept scanning back and forth in the private room. When her eyes swept over Damien, her beautiful eyes were instantly filled with surprise, and her temperament immediately became gentle. At this moment, the classmates were like crazy, taking it for granted that Ophelia had changed her temperament because she saw Damien. Damien is awesome. Even the beautiful president has come to you on her own initiative to discuss cooperation. Don't forget to promote your old classmates when you get rich. What, Damien? This is President Damien. Don't you have any sense of perception? President Damien, feel free to command if you need anything in the future. I still have a box of mine from 1999 at home. Me, when would you like to do me the honor? The many flattering voices made Damien a bit carried away. He laughed and agreed to them one by one. Then he cast a disdainful look at me. "Ethan, see, this is the style that only people like me, the upper class, can have. Trash like you, who work for others, will never experience it." I had a calm expression on my face and didn't pay any attention to him. Damon didn't continue to mock me either. He turned to face Ophelia, nervously rubbing his hands. Then he walked up to her with a fake smile. "President Ophelia, I prepared a banquet upstairs. Let's go there." With that, he also reached out his hands, wanting to hold Ophelia's delicate hands. But to the shock of the classmates in the private room, as soon as their figures crossed each other, Ophelia simply ignored him and walked straight towards the back. The direction was exactly towards me. With eyes as gentle as if they could drip water, she gave me a playful smile and stuck out her tongue. "Brother Ethan, I finally found you." The cold and proud beautiful president suddenly turned into a docile little kitten when she saw me. This shocked everyone present, and they all looked at me in disbelief. Ophelia, however, didn't care about that. She looked me up and down on my dirty clothes and couldn't help bursting out laughing. Only under the menacing gaze of my eyes did she stop laughing. Then, still ignoring Damon, who was frozen in place, she turned her gaze to Natalie and said with disdain, "Your brother Ethan's former fiancé, right? I should thank you for leaving him. Of course, thanks aside, I still have to call you an ungrateful wretch. Brother Ethan shouldn't have saved you back then. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been heartbroken for so many years because of you." As soon as she finished speaking, there was an uproar in the room. The classmates couldn't help but widen their eyes, their gazes sweeping back and forth between me and Natalie. Natalie's face flushed red, and she retorted unconvinced. "He saved me. It was he who deceived me back then. It was clearly Damon who saved me. If it weren't for him showing me the evidence, I would have been kept in the dark by Ethan all along." I was immediately full of confusion, and Ophelia was also stunned. At that time, Damien was far away abroad. How could it suddenly be him who saved the person? Ophelia frowned, her delicate eyebrows knitting together, and said in astonishment, "Evidence? I was right there when brother Ethan jumped into the water to save you. If we're talking about evidence, isn't my testimony as a witness more conclusive than anything else?" As soon as these words came out, it was like a bolt from the blue, shocking Natalie. She couldn't help covering her small mouth, looking at the two of us in disbelief. She couldn't quite accept this fact and asked Ophelia again to confirm whether what she said was true or not. Ophelia immediately nodded firmly. Seeing this, Natalie involuntarily turned her gaze to Damien on the other side. When she saw him avoiding her eyes, Natalie was completely stunned, completely desperate. I now somewhat understood what Natalie meant when she said I deceived her at the door of the lounge. I also understood why. In the previous life, Natalie's attitude towards me had changed dramatically after receiving Damien's call. It turned out that she had misunderstood me, mistakenly believing that it was Damien who had saved her. Then I, the legitimate savior, immediately became a veritable big liar. Not only had I deceived her feelings, but also her marriage. Although we got together and married because we were suitable for each other and deeply in love, it's undeniable that if it hadn't been for her sudden fall into the water that time, I wouldn't have had the chance to get close to her, and there wouldn't have been the subsequent story. During the 5 years of marriage, she had always regarded me as the most important person. Suddenly hearing such a cruel fact must have been a huge blow to her. At this moment, I also understood why she didn't want to talk about it in the previous life. She was probably scared, too afraid that I would admit it, afraid that our marriage would come to an end. From then on, I looked at Natalie and asked the point that puzzled me the most. What kind of evidence was it that made you believe him so much? Didn't you ever suspect it? I remember that I took care of you in the hospital for a week back then. Damien was already abroad at that time. Natalie's eyes were red, and she didn't dare to look at me. She was probably filled with guilt towards me in her heart. Then she began to stammer and explain to me, her tone even a bit choked. At that time, Damien casually mentioned my falling into the water and said that the plane was going to be late, so he could only entrust me to you. Of course, I suspected it, but he showed me the chat records with you, which were about him transferring money to you to pay for my hospitalization expenses. Plus, Sienna confirmed what he said. So I frowned and interrupted her. "So you just believed what they said? Although Sienna is your roommate, don't you know that she and Damien are cousins? And with today's technology, it's too easy to fake a chat record." Natalie sobbed. I only found out about their relationship later. I was a bit speechless. She was too gullible. After so many years of our relationship, she didn't even bother to verify further and just condemn me straight away. Although I understood her way of thinking, the feeling of not being trusted still disappointed me a bit. In the private room, except for the two of us, everyone else was confused. The two people involved, Damien and Sienna, were even more puzzled. Of course, they didn't understand because this was something that had happened in the previous life. In this life, the two of them hadn't had time to deceive Natalie yet. It was Natalie who had gone abroad on her own. Later, they just went along with the flow and admitted this matter. Ophelia, on the side, didn't pay attention to these. She was even a bit annoyed that we had cleared up the misunderstanding. She held my arm even tighter, and her gaze towards Natalie was full of hostility. It's a happy thing that the misunderstanding has been cleared up, but since you're about to get engaged to someone else, you can't come back to brother Ethan. He's mine. Natalie was a bit embarrassed, and I had black lines all over my head. It had been 7 years since Natalie threw away her engagement ring and left for abroad. Regardless of everything, although I hadn't been able to forget her during these 7 years, my feelings for her were still slowly fading away. As the old saying goes, time is the best medicine to heal everything. What has passed and what seemed unpassable will eventually disappear. Now, she might just be a familiar stranger to me and Ophelia. Thinking of her, I was a bit helpless. She was a junior who was 1 year younger than me. We got to know each other because of a school activity. It was also after that activity that I saved Natalie when I was giving her a ride back to the dormitory on my way in. In our previous life, we weren't that familiar with each other and just remained at the stage of being friends. However, in this life, due to Natalie's departure, I unexpectedly ran into Ophelia again by a strange twist of fate. It was only after I joined the Shinger Group and became a senior executive of the company with my design talent that I learned about Ophelia's identity. Since then, it seemed that she had her eyes on me. She would ask me out to eat every now and then, especially after hearing that I had separated from Natalie. Her looks and actions became even more blatant. Basically, the whole company knew that she had a thing for me. Because of this, I don't know how many people secretly cursed me behind my back, saying that I didn't know what was good for me. Just like the classmates in the private room. Now their gazes towards me were full of envy, jealousy, and hatred. But seriously, I just regarded her as a good friend, like a sister. I didn't have any other intentions. Although I had already refused her many times, she still persevered. I had no choice but to lie to her, saying that I still couldn't forget Natalie. Perhaps this was the reason why she immediately mocked Natalie and was even hostile towards her as soon as she came in. Natalie noticed Ophelia's feelings for me and hurriedly said, "Miss Ophelia, it was indeed my fault in this matter, but you can't break me and Ethan apart with that." Without paying attention to Ophelia's expression of wanting to refute, she turned her gaze back to me and started to explain, "Ethan, I will break off my engagement with Damien. It was my fault in the first place. Don't worry, we haven't had that kind of relationship. I will do my best to make it up to you and make up for the mistakes I've made in the future, okay?" I still believed that Natalie hadn't had that kind of relationship with Damien because Natalie was a traditional girl. Before getting married, she wouldn't agree to take the next step. Moreover, I also believed she still had a glimmer of hope for me. This could be seen from her defending me just now. However, this wasn't a reason for me to agree to get back together. 7 years, we had been separated for a full 7 years. Even ordinary married couples experience the 7-year itch, let alone us, having been separated for such a long time. I didn't reply, and Natalie became even more anxious. At this moment, Damien, who had a gloomy face beside us, couldn't hold it in anymore. He probably thought that with me around, the cooperation with the Shanker Group would surely fall through, so he didn't approach Alia. Instead, he walked up to Natalie, wanting to take her and leave the place. He hadn't given up and wanted to explain to Natalie, hoping that they could continue their engagement. But Natalie already hated him to the core and directly slapped him, shouting angrily, "Get out! I never want to see you again, you liar." The words that Natalie didn't say to me in the previous life were instead used on Damien. His face instantly became hideous and terrifying, and he raised his hand about to strike Natalie. In an instant, I suddenly took a step forward, ready to act. I had already made up my mind. As long as Damien dared to lay a hand on her, I guaranteed that he would only be able to leave here lying down. Finally, whether it was out of reluctance or because he sensed my movement, Damien backed down and left the place with his cousin Sienna in disgrace. I left too. I left with Ophelia. Although Natalie kept apologizing behind me, I was tired. I waved my hand at her and then got into Alia's car. In the following few days, I didn't go to work at the company. I was silently digesting what had happened at the party at home. Ophelia was also very considerate. She directly told me that I could go back to the company whenever I had sorted out my feelings. Of course, she came to visit me at my home more frequently. She even bought a villa in the neighborhood where I lived under the pretext of being able to care about the physical and mental health of her employees up close. I knew that she probably felt threatened by Natalie. Before Natalie came back, she thought that I couldn't escape her grasp and no one dared to compete with her. So she had never been this eager before. But now it was different. Natalie was back. She was afraid that I would, on a whim, choose to get back together with Natalie. Realizing this, I couldn't help but laugh. At this stage, I really didn't have such an idea. Whether it was Natalie or Ophelia, I didn't have the intention of getting together with either of them. It wasn't that I was closing my heart and locking up my love, wanting to be a loner from now on. Rather, I still hadn't figured out what kind of choice I should make regarding Natalie. I indeed had never been able to forget her. We were very happy in the previous life, and that's why when she misunderstood me and her attitude toward me changed, it hurt me deeply. And what about Ophelia? Things between me and her hadn't developed to that point. It's undeniable that the deep affection she showed me was something I couldn't refuse. So, after thinking for a while, I decided to put all of this aside for now, let things develop freely, and see where they lead. Then I went back to my simple life of going between two places every day. I was either busy dealing with work at the company, watching TV dramas at home, or going out for a walk. My life was casual and relaxed. Sometimes I could even meet Ophelia, who was waiting for me downstairs. I didn't refuse and sat on the grass in the park, chatting with her about everything under the sun. 2 weeks later, when I got home from work, I was surprised to see Natalie at my doorstep. Unlike the time at the class reunion when she was dressed up, she was wearing casual clothes at the moment and had no makeup on her face. Her messy bangs were fluttering on her forehead. She was leaning against the wall with groceries and a bag at her feet. I don't know how long she had been waiting there. She had even fallen asleep sitting there. For a moment, it seemed as if I saw the scene from our previous life again when she forgot her keys and was waiting for me at the doorstep. Back then, when she saw me coming back, she would act coquettishly towards me and even jokingly complain about me. She would say that it was all because I didn't remind her to take the keys in the morning that she couldn't get into the house. We would cook while laughing and playing around. But now, looking at her sleeping figure, I didn't even dare to approach her. Just as I was lost in memories, Natalie might have sensed something. She opened her sleepy eyes, and when her gaze fell on me, they were instantly filled with joy. "Ethan, you're back." She tried to stand up, but having sat for too long, her legs were a bit numb. She actually fell towards the ground. Instinctively, I dropped my bag and took a few steps forward to catch her, with her delicate body in my arms. The long-lost feelings surged up in my heart again, but I didn't dare to make a single move for fear of causing her any misunderstanding. Natalie probably sensed that my body was tense. She sighed and then got up from my arms. After tidying herself up a bit, she smiled and gestured to the groceries beside her. "Look, I bought coconuts. How about I make coconut chicken for you today?" Hearing this, my expression was a bit complicated. In our previous life, I loved the coconut chicken made by Natalie the most. To learn how to make this dish, her hands had been injured many times. Sometimes it was from the coconut shell accidentally bouncing off when opening it, and sometimes it was from being scalded by the broth. I watched with great heartache and advised her to stop. I even wanted to take her place, but she would always smile and tease me, saying, "I'm your wife. If I don't make it for you, do you want to wait for a mistress to make it for you in the future?" There was nothing I could do but watch carefully beside her. Unexpectedly, after so much time passed in this life, she still remembered. I didn't refuse and invited her into the house. She was handling the groceries a bit clumsily and almost got hurt several times. I watched with worry and wanted to go up and help, but she firmly refused. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Let me make it for you just this once. I'm afraid that when there's another woman by your side in the future, I'll never have the chance again." At this point, I could only silently step back. During the meal, we talked a lot. She told me that when she was abroad, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't forget me. Sometimes she could even recall the happy moments of our previous life. I really wanted to tell her that I was the same, but I just couldn't get the words out. Then she also told me that she had already broken off her engagement with Damien and had resigned from her position as a design consultant in his company. Damien's company was actually set up under the name of Natalie. Now, not only had he lost the chance to cooperate with Shinger Group, but he had also lost Natalie, a top designer. One can imagine how much of a blow it would be to his company. I thought that was the end of Damien's story, but to my surprise, Natalie's next words made me widen my eyes in disbelief. I could only do this much, but your little mistress, Ophelia, didn't stop there. She not only cut off all of Damien's company's business, but also directly blacklisted him in the business circle. This time he's in debt up to his ears and might not even be able to afford food in the future. At the end, Natalie gave me a slightly dissatisfied look, as if she was complaining that I had found such a formidable competitor for her. I looked embarrassed and was at a loss for words. Then I suddenly remembered something and quickly called Ophelia. I told her to be careful of Damien's revenge. You know, cutting off someone's source of income is like killing their parents. Damien didn't look like a nice guy at all. He might do something really cruel. Ophelia said nonchalantly on the other end, "Brother Ethan, you're a bit late with your warning. Damien was planning to take revenge on me yesterday and even tried to kill me with a knife. But luckily, there were bodyguards sent by my dad beside me. They subdued him directly and sent him to the police station." Then she changed the topic, and her tone was full of happiness. "Brother Ethan really has been paying attention to me. You already know about the things I did to Damien. I did it all for you. Don't be too touched. Just marry me." Originally, when I heard that Damien had already taken action, I was really worried for a while. But hearing Ophelia's later words, I couldn't help but give a bitter laugh. Natalie seemed to have heard Ophelia's words too, and couldn't help but roll her eyes. In the following few days, Ophelia somehow heard about Natalie coming to my house. Not to be outdone, she learned to make several dishes and block my doorstep to cook for me. Then Natalie, I actually joined in. The two women immediately got into a competition and even insisted that I evaluate whose dish was more delicious. What could I say? No matter who I said made a more delicious dish, it would be wrong. Even making excuses to get by wouldn't work. There was nothing I could do but run away. I took a long vacation from the company and bought a small homestay in Sonia. That very night, I flew directly to Sonia. There, I really had a few peaceful days, but unfortunately, things didn't go as I wished. One morning, when I wanted to go for a walk in the seaside park and buy some breakfast on the way, as soon as I opened the door, I saw two familiar figures standing at the door. It was Natalie and Ophelia. Each of them was holding a thermos lunchbox in their hands. Seeing me, they hurriedly said in unison, Brother Ethan, quickly taste it and see whose breakfast is more delicious." I took a deep breath, looking completely hopeless. How I wish this was just a dream.